Hi there. This is Bentley. I'm Shonah. I am the author of this book, and I kind of thought instead of doing a weird audible recording, which I actually may do at some point, I would do YouTube videos and read through the book, and it might sort of tail off into random thoughts or tangents about what I've written or the chapter or what have you, but I'm literally at like the most gorgeous lake right now, and it's sunset, so it's a little dark on this side, but we're just gonna roll with it. It's gonna get darker as things go here. The sun is setting, but I thought it was kind of a cool setting for the first chapter, considering I talk about kind of where I'm physically sitting right now. There's a ton of dragonflies around me, and so I might scream or swat at them because they're kind of massive and freaky, but this is literally the most gorgeous backdrop I could ask for, and I thought I would read the first chapter of my book and post more videos of me reading through the book in general and just see where it goes. This is Bentley's tail. He is trying to eat the dragonflies. Okay, here goes. For those who don't know, this is called Steady in the Storm. It kind of depicts a bit of my history and then the storm of what it was like marrying an alcoholic and having him relapse very shortly on in our marriage. Just the tagline on the beginning of the book, the cover here says, "Realizing my limitations towards my husband's alcoholism left me out of control. Jesus was found in the chaos, and he began where I was at an end." So really it's my story of how faith got me through the storm. That Jesus doesn't necessarily stop the storms or take us out of the storms, but he is with us in the storm, and how he was with me. So it's dedicated to my husband, Rhett. It says, "To Rhett, my fearless pirate captain," which will make more sense later on. Chapter 1. My relationship with fear. I would like to take a small amount of time to introduce myself. If you identify with even 3 things in the next portion of this read, I dare say you and I will get along just fine. Most people who are regular readers know that if they like the first page or first chapter of a book, the probability of them enjoying the whole book is very high. No pressure, right? It is my goal to write a short and interesting chapter that you can casually read while leaning against a bookcase in the shop, deciding if this book is right for you. A bit about me. All good conversations seem to start around a well-brewed pot of coffee. I take my coffee extremely hot, very dark, very black, and prefer to drink it outside, in the woods, by a campfire, with a view of a lake, when I can make that happen, of course. I actually just finished a cup of coffee, so it was dark and black and hot. But I don't have it anymore, so I did make it happen, just not in this exact moment. My old roommates and I would tell our guests that if they didn't take their coffee black in our household, they weren't allowed to have any at all, which led to more than one friend to keep cream or white sweeteners hidden away at the back of our fridge. You know who you are. I have a dog. His name is Bentley. This is literally, I'm reading this, and this is him. This is Bentley. His name is Bentley, and he is a miniature dachshund with somewhat shaggy hair, like a retriever. He is also the color of a retriever, which has led more than one small child to mistake him for a retriever puppy. Isn't that right? Yes. He is thankfully out of the puppy stage. Bentley goes with us everywhere dogs are allowed to go, and sometimes places they aren't. He also has the biggest personality a 17-pound, twice as long as his high dachshund could possibly have. If our living situation allowed, we'd own at least 2 more dachshunds and a donkey. I'd definitely own a donkey. I'm a struggling extrovert, although people who are closest to me say I'm introverted, but neither has really landed with me. People put way too much weight on introvert versus extrovert. Hey, nope. Sorry, he's about to jump in the water. I don't want that. I don't think any one person has to be one over the other. There have been times in my life when I've needed both. I've needed to be surrounded by people so I can fend off them and build with them in conversation. I've needed quiet times alone where I can fiddle with a project for hours on end with a podcast as my only company until I'm driven mad by the quiet and have to find a busy environment where I can people watch, preferably with extremely hot, dark coffee. Maybe I'm more introverted, but I have to wait. Maybe I am more introverted, but I want to have the thrill of being extroverted. extroverts seem to experience more somehow. I once read this question in a magazine: how are you a beautiful contrast? I knew how to answer this right away. I love getting all dolled up, hitting the town and a fancy restaurant with my man and ordering multiple things off the menu for us to try. But I also love my ripped jeans, flannel shirts, and driving the truck onto dusty roads until we lose cell service and find an isolated lake to camp at. I squealed with delight when I discovered that the magazine had published my submitted answer to their question in the following issue, along with other reader submissions. I have struggled with breaking off my relationship with fear my entire life, and it has taken me a very long time to overcome my fear of driving the truck on dusty roads until we lose cell service. I live in a beautiful city, and it's a highly desirable place to live by most of the country's standards. It's surrounded by mountains and so many lakes in those mountains you probably wouldn't have time to visit them all if you tried. I lived here for 10 years before I ventured off into the hills to see those lakes, and it was my boyfriend at the time, who led the way. Even though it was something I wanted so badly, adventure in the mountains, camping, lake swimming, and endless s'mores over campfires, I was too fearful to take myself there. My husband is an avid woodsman. This was just one of his many qualities that was a large attraction for me. He is more comfortable in the bush with his backpack that's packed with everything you need in the event of a zombie apocalypse, or if you happen to harvest a deer and need to spend the night, than he is Google mapping his way through a city he's never been before. I'm more comfortable following the blue dot on the blue line on Google Maps until I reach my very planned destination on my very planned route. I am then filled with delightful surprise when I actually arrive at the place Google Maps has very intentionally guided me to. True story. What an adventure. It's a modern-day pirate treasure map, only now the treasure is a well-brewed cappuccino and macarons found in the middle of a city jungle. The first time Rhett took me into the woods for a weekend adventure, it was for a fishing trip to a place called Beaver Lake. There is a small resort there. I use the term resort loosely, as most people's definition of resort would have them picturing something much grander. Beaver Lake has one main house with a restaurant that has 2 tables. Right beside the menu is a list of different worms and fishing bait also available. They have a camping area where you can pitch a tent or pull a trailer. People have occupied some of these trailer spots as summer getaways for so long, they have built tiki huts worthy of a Yelp review. Most of the property is occupied by small cozy cabins for 2 or larger ones that sleep up to 12. They also have a spa where you can get a massage. I never saw the inside of the spa. We were there for Rhett to teach me how to catch my first fish. It was only about a 30-minute drive on a Forest Service road to get to Beaver Lake from town. Basically, a dusty, pothole-ridden washboard through the woods. This is the problem with doing live videos. You're going to have to suffer through my mistakes. My fear of the unknown on this road trip was so rampant, I thought we were going to get lost in the woods and have to spend the night in the truck, and search and rescue would have to come find us in the morning. Hopefully they would get there before the bear and cougar simultaneously broke into the truck and attacked Rhett, causing me to be his sole hope for survival as I worked to control the bleeding, keeping him alive until help arrived as I swat away a dragonfly. Hey, stay here. We were only dating at the time, but of course something this traumatic would bond us for life and we'd have to get married. I also came up with about 45 other scenarios that had us dead, eaten, truck upside down and totaled, and forest fire trapped. Bentley must have been just as terrified as I was, because any time we hit a dirt road back then, he would shake with anxiety and whine until the truck stopped and he could get out, touching his paws to the ground knowing he made it alive. I feel you, bud. It's also quite possible he was just feeding off my anxiety. That's probably more realistic. We miraculously arrived at Beaver Lake all in one piece. I couldn't believe it. Not only that, but there were about 100 other people there who had made it alive, and they had seemed to be having a pretty good time. I very quickly talked myself off the ledge and told myself how dumb it was to worry about getting into a destination that was obviously very reachable. Moreover, I had to play it as cool as possible so Rhett wouldn't think I was lame. We were just dating at the time. I still had a lot to prove, apparently. Pretty sure he already knew, though, because the whole 30-minute ride up, I would calmly ask over and over and over how much farther we had to go, if this road was safe, Are there life-threatening animals or situations up here? When I saw a couple of kids casually riding their bikes along the dirt roads of the resort, I knew my brain had drastically oversaturated the situation in fear. It's okay, though, because I'm used to this. I've been fostering a relationship with fear since I was a kid. And fear and I are so tight now we both know what the other one is going to say before we say it. We can be found finishing each other's sentences in that cute rom-com way, except those sentences have been keeping me from reaching my potential my whole life. I did end up catching my first fish that weekend up at Beaver Lake. In fact, I caught 6 of them. Not to brag. Rhett caught 4 and Bentley barked at every single one as they were pulled into the boat. It was cold and rainy as we fished, causing fog to cover parts of the lake. It was period English novel-worthy beauty, yet I was worried the whole time about getting lost, not being able to find our way back to the resort, and having to spend the night in the boat, slowly dying of hypothermia. Okay, you get it. Leaving Beaver Lake, I felt like a new person, a death-defying adventurer that had just scaled Everest. I couldn't believe this gorgeous place had been so close to me the entire decade I had lived in this city. Not only that, but it was completely accessible by pretty much any car, meaning it was somewhere I could have gone for the past 10 years I'd lived here. After that weekend, I could not stop talking to Rhett about how great the weekend was. I loved our one-room cabin and decided we should live in it for the rest of our lives. I wanted to come back 3 more times before they closed for the season, and I wanted to come back every year, staying in our same cabin as a way to celebrate our love. I can also be a little overdramatic at times. I was obsessed with the whole experience of it. Why? Because that weekend, the unknown of what was in the mountains became known to me. It became a reachable place, somewhere I could go again and know how it would turn out. It would become predictable and safe. I love predictable and safe. I love knowing what's going to happen, knowing I'll make it home alive to see another day. Almost everything I've done in my life has fostered a safe box of predictability. That box has kept me from experiences like fishing at Beaver Lake. It has also kept me from a great many other things. Like Jo March from Little Women said when told by Mr. Bear, she should have been a lawyer. I should have been a great many things, Mr. Bear. That resonates with me. Not because of the suppression of women Jo experienced in her time, but because I have suppressed myself my whole life. It's been a few years since I caught my first fish at Beaver Lake, and you know what? We've never been back to that resort. We have, however, been to numerous other lakes and locations. Have I had to battle fear every time we go somewhere new? Of course. Pause. I was actually battling it about 2 hours ago when Rhett went off to go hunting and left me here. This is normal. We do this. This is how we do things. But I was still nervous. You know, he had to remind me how to load the shotgun as a safety precaution in case a bear attacks me. So yeah, I still sometimes battle this fear. But I'm doing a whole lot better because here I sit alone at this beautiful lake reading you a book I wrote about fear. So clearly I've made progress in my life. Okay, let's keep going. Is my relationship with fear something I'm still trying to say, it's not me, it's you? Yes. Fostering relationships with intangible things is kind of odd, yet we do it all the time. Christians like to refer to faith as a relationship rather than a religion, but how do you foster a relationship with an intangible God? Why does our answer to that question seem so difficult, yet fostering a relationship with a fear is finish each other's sentences easy? I have been a Christian my whole life, yet it's only for the past couple of years that I really truly believe I have a relationship with Christ. I think prior to these years I did have a relationship with Christ, a relationship that Christ was in, but fear was still riding shotgun. As a child in my teen years, my motivation to be a Christian was more out of my own fear than it was a desire to be connected with God my Father. It was more of a must do or else than a freely give and freely receive love. Through this book, I hope to provide you with a very real look at my relationship with God. It's not pretty at times, it's hard, it's not safe, and it's exceptionally good. I wanted to put my relationship with God into words for so long, but felt it had to be done in a way that would be attractive. It needed to sound more like a Jane Austen novel than the mess of real life. I spent a lot of time thinking about writing fiction, believing this would be... I've spent a lot of time thinking about writing fiction, believing this would be more gripping than my actual story and a better way to exercise my love of creativity and writing. Eventually, I came to the brilliant and simple realization that I needed to just write what I know and what I have walked. In all the books I have read, there is nothing more gripping than someone just telling their story. We relate to one another through our stories. You don't know me now, but if you have identified with just 3 things up to this point, I guarantee we'll get along just fine. Because we're all just people. We're all just trying to make sense of life and get through doing the best we can. Sometimes doing the best we can looks really terrible and it's not something we want to share, but it's our best at that moment. It's so easy to compare ourselves with others and look at where we are at as less than. But God knows we are doing the best we can with what we have, and He sees it as glorious and worthy of eternal acknowledgement. Oh, that was a big fish that jumped. He is cheering us on in our darkest times and is beside us in the trenches, getting just as dirty as we are. He is love. He is mercy. His plans are not always safe, but they are good. He is the theme of this story, and fear cannot be found in Him because He is love, and there is no fear in love. So that's chapter 1. Wow, I didn't feel like I did as badly as I thought I would. And what a backdrop, jeepers. I might have to read a few more chapters, maybe the whole book here. I don't know. It's gorgeous. Yeah, I guess I thought the fun reason behind a YouTube video over Audible, although I'm sure I will do an Audible at some point, is I could do some commentating and maybe make some added thoughts. Yeah, I really wanted to read this chapter here because I'm literally sitting in a mountain lake beyond cell service that I've never been to before, but I can literally see, Big White, which is our ski mountain from here. And I've been to Big White lots, but I've never been to this lake because it was too scary to go somewhere that I didn't know. And, I think back now on, Rhett and I have been married almost 3 years, and Beaver Lake was 4 years ago, I guess now, 4. And how far, I've come in that journey of I don't want to go on a back road. It's too scary and too bumpy and we're going to die, to I know how to load a shotgun in case a bear attacks. I guess what I'm trying to say is that where you are now does not, still afraid of dragonflies though, where you are now is not where you might be 3 years from now. Growth happens. It's slow, but it happens. You watch a baby grow and it takes them a year to learn how to walk. And sometimes we forget that it can take a year to learn how to unlearn some of our bad habits. And I'm still battling with my fear, but I've learned how to not let it consume me. I think I'll probably always struggle with fear to some extent, but it doesn't have to overrun my life. I don't really know if I have any other comments on that chapter. It's a pretty light chapter, but I think my goal in that chapter is just to give you some perspective of who I am, which obviously is easier when you can see me and hear me read it and hear the emotion of me behind my own words. I always connect better with books that way. So Steady in the Storm by Shonah Marie, and the back. I definitely don't look that fancy right now, but anyway, you can buy it on Amazon, amazon.ca.com, whatever, Kindle or print. And hopefully this will be sort of a journey of videos as I read through the book and share any new insight that's come to me since then. Well, it's a very big dragonfly just inches from me over here. Still minorly fearful. Okay, we're good. It flew away. Anyway, I might read a few more chapters while I'm out here because this is just gorgeous and I feel like I can't stop talking because I can't stop looking at my own background. But I'm sure you're tired of listening. So anyway, again, Steady in the Storm. Realizing my limitations towards my husband's alcoholism left me out of control. Jesus was found in the chaos and He began where I was at an end. So join me in the reading and post any comments or questions you have below. I'd love to interact with you and meet you where you're at.